But right now, we're going to bring to you guys a friend of mine. Gina is in the house. How are you doing, Gina?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you for being here, man. I'm super excited to have you. I'm going to give a quick shout out. I missed a couple of people that have joined that I got to say hello to. First of all, Michelle, thanks for being here. Leanne, Billy, and Jeff, thank you so much for being here. Guys, feel free to share out this broadcast. We're chatting right now with Gina, who's a breast cancer survivor out of the Dallas, Texas area. Girl, it's been a hot minute since I've seen you. I guess it's been at least a year since I've seen just about everybody at this point. But
Yes, it has, unfortunately.
I think the last time I saw you was New Year's Eve last year.
Yes, at the House of Blues. It was a great time.
Yeah, much different time for sure. It's kind of hard to believe that just a couple of months later the world would turn upside down, but I'm super, blessed and thankful that we're able to get together with people in this way right now and stay in touch and share stories like yours. So it's been a long while now since you were diagnosed with breast cancer, but I want you
Yes.
guys, you to take everybody back if you could, and let everybody know how this all came to be. How was your breast cancer found originally?
Well, it's interesting. My mother was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 39. So I knew at about age 35, I probably needed to start getting mammograms. Excuse me. So I asked to have those done. And of course, I had to fight with insurance to allow that to happen. But it did. And I had my mammograms religiously starting at 35. And I want to say I was 38 or 39 or 38. I had a mammogram. They said, oh, it looks like, there's some shadowing. We want you to come back in and let us take another look. So I did that. And they said, okay, it's fibrous tissue. Moved to next year. Now I'm 39. Same thing happens. They do the mammogram. They say we need to look. There's some shadowing. So I go in for a further scan, and they said, "Well, we see a little something there, but we really don't think it's anything. But if you want to be 100% sure, you need to have an MRI." Well, my insurance company would not pay for an MRI. Anything diagnostic was not covered. So I kind of just let it go. But a couple of months later, my other doctors kept prodding me, did you have it? Did you have the MRI? Did you have it? Did you have it? And I said, no. They said, you really need to get it. So I went ahead and got the MRI. And I had stage 3 breast cancer. They found stage 3 breast cancer at that time.
Wow. And so you were having your mammograms pretty early, you said, because you had a family history of it. And right?
Yes.
Mhm. And so was your first mammogram you said was 38?
35.
35. Wow, gosh. Gosh, that's so young. So
And had I
young.
waited until 40, like the insurance companies wanted to do at the time, it would have been too late.
Right, right. Well, I'm really glad that a lot, at least I think more of the insurance companies these days are taking into consideration the different risk factors that people may have, because it just varies. It really does, person to person. And that's something that's really good to point out, Gina, is that you need to know your risk factors. There's a lot of websites out there where you can find, I know WebMD is a pretty reliable place you can go, but American Cancer Society at cancer.org is great for finding out your risk for breast cancer. There's some various different risk factors for that. So gosh, thank God that you did that. So they did the mammogram. They said you needed to have an MRI, and the MRI is what found it. However, there probably was something between the MRI and your actual diagnosis where they staged you. Did they have to do a biopsy at that point? And then they were able to collect data, and they found that it was in various locations? Because as I recall, for stage 2, it has to be over a certain size or be in your breast and your lymph nodes. And for stage 3, it has to be over a certain size and probably also in your lymph nodes. Is that the situation for you?
Yes, I think they primarily use size for staging. So my tumor was 5 centimeters, a little bit larger than 5 centimeters. And of course, they didn't know if it was in the lymph nodes until I had the surgery, and they did remove 7 lymph nodes. So it definitely was stage 3.
So it was over 5 centimeters, and then all 7 of the lymph nodes actually had cancer cells.
Um, I don't know the answer to that. I assume they did if they removed them.
Yeah, and I'm asking you questions I don't even know if I would know the answer to, because I
That's
know that,
okay.
like, I don't remember how many lymph nodes they biopsied or took when I had breast cancer. I didn't have any cancer in my lymph nodes, but they still took some out to biopsy them. So, wow, that's crazy. Stage 3 is scary. I mean, that's right on the cusp of the bad one.
It is. My doctor told me I had about a 50-50 chance, of survival, and I was young. I was at a very happy point in my life, and I just said, "You know what? Cancer is not gonna take all this away from me." And I was lucky in that I was young, so I did dose dense chemo, which means I got twice as much, twice as fast, as the normal person because my body was young enough to withstand it. And that I think also helped. But I have to tell you, I guess once I passed the 5-year mark, which is what every cancer patient, wants to reach that mark, the doctor reviewed my file, and it was a thick file, and he just reviewed everything, and he just looked at me and he said, your cancer, you had stage 3 cancer, more than 5 centimeters. Your chances were 50-50. And he said, all I can tell you right now, in all honesty, is that what you survived due to your attitude. And he said, I have so many women that come in here with stage 1 cancer that need a lumpectomy and they curl up in a ball and die. And he said, you had the right attitude and you chose to fight and you survived.
Wow, that's deep, man. That's so
Yeah.
scary. And did you say that when they told you you had the 50-50 chance of survival, did they actually tell you that up front, or did you find that out later?
Um, I'm trying to remember. It's been so long ago. Probably later.
Yeah.
I don't know if they told me that up front or not. To be honest, I just don't remember.
Yeah. And so, how long ago was this? I know you said you were 39 at the time, but how long ago was
The-
that? And we're not. I'm
couple
not.
years
I'm
ago,
not. Yeah.
April.
I'm not. I'm not trying to get you to tell your age or anything. But
Um,
more so, I want to know how long you've been cancer free. Is really what I want to know.
I was diagnosed in March of 2007, so I'm coming up on 14 years
That's
cancer free.
amazing. And, that makes you such a huge inspiration to many breast cancer survivors out there, because there's so many women right now, as you know, in our group, the various different breast cancer survivor groups out there, that are super scared. They've just been diagnosed, and to hear from someone like you who survived stage 3 and you're so far past it now, it's very inspirational. So I'm really glad that we're able to share your story. So you mentioned that you had surgery. Now, was that a lumpectomy?
I had bilateral mastectomies, and then in March of 2008, the following year, I had a full hysterectomy.
Now, was that because were you tested for a genetic mutation, or did you have the
Um,
BRCA?
Yes, so I did do the genetic testing, and I was negative for that. I chose to do everything else, prophylactically. I didn't want cancer to get anywhere else, and I had a little bit of a family history, and the fact that it was stage 3, I knew they were gonna have to remove one breast, so I said, just do them both, and then the following year, I made the decision to have the hysterectomy.
Wow, man, that is jumping in there and getting crazy with it. I mean, I was just speaking with somebody actually today in one of the survivor groups, where I was telling them, that since I had triple negative breast cancer, that I went really aggressive by having a double mastectomy and no reconstruction and all that stuff. And that's kind of speaks to your point, is that you were very aggressive in your fight, and you didn't want to give it any opportunity to take up camp, anywhere else, right?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Another thing, I just had to follow up with my breast surgeon, and I'm bringing this up because you mentioned the genetic testing, and she noted in reviewing my file that yes, I was tested for BRCA1 and BRCA2, and I was negative. But she said now they have identified 33 genes that can contribute to hereditary breast cancer. So she wanted to test me again, to see if I had any of those other gene mutations. And luckily, I do not. So, having two daughters, that made me really happy.
Wow, that's crazy. And I mean, not to like rain on that parade, but in my mind, for someone like you and for someone like me, who we know, I have a history of cancer on my dad's side of the family, and you have a history of cancer in your family as well. Is I just kind of wonder if it's not just a gene that they haven't found yet, but it's one of those, which would tell me that if it is a gene, that it's probably one that has a low percentage tied to it, because the BRCA gene has a high percentage of getting breast cancer and ovarian cancer and stuff like that. But then a lot of those 30 whatever genes that they're checking for now, when I had the genetic testing, it shows you the percentage of likelihood of breast cancer associated with each one, and they're much less. A lot of them are. So I have a
Oh,
feeling,
good.
yeah, I have a feeling that the one that we have one, but hopefully it's one of those ones. It probably more than likely is one of those that's a low percentage, which is why they haven't found it. You see what I'm saying?
True, and hereditary breast cancers only make up 5 to 10% of the total breast cancers.
Yeah.
So chances are, if someone gets it, it's not going to be because their mom had it. But it does happen.
Yeah, crazy. And again, we have to go back to saying that, cancer.org, the American Cancer Society, a great place to check out and know your risk. So after you had your double mastectomy, you had reconstruction. How
I
long?
did.
Tell me, like, how long between each thing? So you were diagnosed, and then how long before you had did you do surgery first, or that was actually second for you, wasn't it? Or did you do chemo first?
Let's um, so I was diagnosed in March, and I know my surgery was in May. So I probably had chemo beforehand. And then no, that's not true, because I had chemo all the way from when I was diagnosed until November of that same year. So it must have been happening at the same time.
Wow. And and so how long was the recovery for you from your surgeries, and how many
Um,
surgeries did you have?
the mastectomies, I mean, that's a pretty major surgery.
Right.
It, it wasn't bad. You have drains. It's cumbersome. It's a little painful. Um, but I just kind of kept on plugging away. I mean, of course, I was down for probably a week or two, but then I was back up, at least working from home and doing that kind of thing. And then reconstruction, I did have that done. It didn't turn out well the first time. I moved to a different physician and had it redone,
Would
and
you
was
w-
much happier the second time.
would you care to elaborate, just for the folks watching, what kind of issues you encountered the first time around?
Um,
You don't have to. I just
no, I know.
uh,
It was a mix of things. I think that the size was too big. They did not look natural. Um, it literally looked like you had put two softballs way up by my neck. They weren't even. There was just nothing pretty about it at all. And so I decided to go elsewhere, and turned out much better, luckily.
well, I'm really glad about that. You do hear a lot of different stories of people's experiences with reconstruction, where they have a great experience, or they have a total botched experience. And I know some people who had reconstruction and just kept having more and more issues, and they ended up just scrapping the whole thing. And you just never know what you're gonna get there. So yeah, it's always scary. But I'm glad you were able to find somebody that was able to get you fixed up. When you mentioned
Yes.
that you went through chemo and the dose dense chemo, I would assume that meant that a lot of the effects of the chemo were a lot worse for you than they would be for someone else, or a lot stronger. What kind of problems did you have when you went through chemo? Or
Well, after the first dose, and I was petrified. I think, like most cancer patients are, when they hook you up to get that first chemo, that first round of chemo, because you hear all the scary talk out there about the Red Devil, which is the strong chemo drug that they use. And you hear horror stories about being sick and losing your hair and all of that. So I was very, very nervous. After the first round, I was extremely nauseated. I was extremely tired. When I went back and met with my oncologist afterwards, he said, "Oh, well, if you were nauseated, we can give you a shot that keeps that from happening." And I'm thinking, great. I wish, I wish he'd done that before. So after that, I really wasn't nauseated. I wasn't sick. I was tired, definitely. And I would sleep most of that day, maybe part of the next day, low energy. And then, of course, you get to the point where your hair starts coming out. And I had long hair, um, made a decision to just shave it off. Um, but I didn't lose, eyebrows or eyelashes or body hair like a lot of women do. And so it was really just working through that process.
Do you remember at all out of curiosity? Sorry, out of curiosity, what types of chemo it was? If it was adriamycin, Cytoxin, and Taxol?
I believe that it was. I know it was adriamycin, um,
Red Devil.
cytosin. Yes, cytosin. And I'm not sure about the third one, but it sounds familiar.
Yeah, yeah. And those are just for those people who are watching right now. Those are very common for people going through breast cancer. Did you have any neuropathy or anything like that?
I really did not. I really, I guess I kind of lucked out that way. I didn't suffer any neuropathy.
Yeah, I was actually talking to some women recently. I don't know why. I think once you start commenting on a lot of posts in survivor groups, then you see more of them in your feed, and then you comment
Hmm.
on more of them. And so I'm just like feel like I'm in the groups all the time now. But I was speaking with someone recently, who was having horrible neuropathy. They were having problems with their eyes. They were having problems. They had one of their fingernails fell off completely, and all the different crazy effects that you can have from it. It's just a real blessing that you didn't have a lot of those things, because they can be very debilitating and also just make your overall mental health. It's really a hit on that, because you're trying to get through something physically, and then to have all these other problems, it just really makes it a lot more difficult. When you lost your hair, how did that impact you?
Well, of course, I wasn't happy to lose my hair. I really have to give a lot of credit to my late husband because he really, really was my support system and my rock that helped me through this. He would tell me, you're the most beautiful bald woman I've ever seen. He brought a dozen pink roses to every chemo treatment and sat there with me. And I really think that's a lot of that is what really helped me through the process and helped me fight to come out the other side. But losing my hair was not fun. I had to buy a wig because I was doing a TV spot for my real estate business, and I couldn't stand it. It itched. It was hot. I think I only wore it for that show. I tried to do like little turbans and hats. I don't like things on my head. So I really just didn't wear anything. I just went with, all natural and just lived with it. I mean, I got used to it after a while. It was a shock at first, but I was okay with it.
I was exactly the same way. I bought 3 different wigs, and I wore them just a handful of time at most, and just was a lot more comfortable. It was kind of like one of those things where it was like, I'm going through enough crap as it is. I don't need some little thing to worry about. Like, it was just seemed so minor to me anymore. I just throw on
Hmm.
a beanie or a ball cap or something and just go about my day, or sometimes just go without anything and just, hit it, and do my thing. I want to say that Randy Ebert has joined. He is from our survivor group page that you recently became a part of, and he is our male breast cancer survivor in the group. I'll have to share with you his video soon. I want to give a shout out to Fred and Alicia who are here. Alicia's in from Austin. What's up, Alicia? Thank you for joining. Tanya is in the house. What's up? What's up, Tanya? Great to see you. Now, Jimmy is here as well, and Manuel, too. So thank you guys all for being here. Be sure to share out the broadcast. And if you have questions for Gina, be sure and pop them in the comments here. So, Gina, nowadays, how long after you were diagnosed and you completed your treatment did you have to still go see your oncologist? Were you still going at a fairly frequent rate?
I was, at first it was every 3 months, then it was every 6 months, then it was once a year. And believe it or not, I still go once a year. He told me that I really didn't have to anymore, but that if I wanted to, he would welcome that. And I do go. I go every December. They take my blood and they check for tumor markers. And I need that peace of mind still. And so every December we go for a visit. He reviews my file, checks my vitals, does my blood work, and I go on my way.
Yeah, and that peace of mind is really worth a lot too. I know I actually was let go from my oncologist a few years ago, and it kind of freaked me out. I felt like I was just being thrown out into space a little. It's like nobody's checking on me anymore. And I remember at one point I went to Viascan down in Las Colinas, and they do this full body scan that's very low radiation. And I was like, I'm just going to go do it. Like, you could just pay a flat rate kind of thing. And I was like, I'm just going to do it because it's worth the peace of mind. And the downside of doing something like that is all of us have fibroid cysts just here and there and everywhere. And you can really get stuck running down some rabbit holes when you do that, which I did end up doing on a couple of things when it came to, like, there was something near my pancreas, and so I totally flipped out and chased that down and everything. But that's really a very worthwhile thing to do, is to get that peace of mind is so important as a breast cancer survivor, just to feel confident that you're safe and secure out there.
Well, and I think once you've had breast cancer, anytime you have an ache or a pain or something doesn't feel right, your mind always goes there.
Yep.
And so I welcome the annual visit, just like I said, just for that peace of mind to get me through one more year.
Yep, amen to that. And Randy did say, "Welcome, Gina, you rock." He says yes, you rock. Well, I thank you. Yes, I do. Well, we've only got a few more minutes left, and one of the things I always like to ask people that join the show as breast cancer survivors is, can you tell us something that you felt that was a real positive that you gained from going through breast cancer?
Oh gosh. I mean, I think every cancer patient or survivor that goes through it has got to come out realizing that life is a timed event. You've got to make the most of every single day. You cannot take those you love for granted. You need to tell them, because you just never know when a certain day is going to be your last day. So you've got to cherish that time. I think I learned that more than anything, and it sticks with me today.
It's a really good point too. It just gives you a whole new perspective on life, no doubt about it. Man, Gina, thank you so much for joining today. I told you, I was like, hey man, this is gonna go by really fast. It's like a blink, and 30 minutes has passed. I'm telling you, and I'm so glad you were able to join it, and I'm so glad also that you're part of our new survivors group. Randy just pointed out, as a breast cancer survivor, he says I'm definitely paranoid about aches and pains, so he can totally relate to that. So yeah, that's one of the things that we always have to live with. And you, like you said, just try to live your life and not take anything for granted. Be sure to tell those people around you how much you love them, because you never know when that might change. So Gina, girl, thank you so much again for taking some time out today. Really appreciate having you here.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
You bet, girl. It's great to see you guys. Give it up for Gina. Thank you so much, everybody. She's a rock star, man. Gina.